All right, let's dive into this. We're going deep on real estate investing today with Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
Yeah, this one's a classic.
It is. And you know what struck me? I mean, just right off the bat, he's got over 100 millionaire real estate investors who contributed to this.
Yeah, yeah, it's not just like theoretical stuff, these are people who actually done it.
Right, exactly.
And I think one of the things that Keller does really well is he digs into not just what they did, but their mindset, like how they thought about things. And he even uses his own missteps as examples. Like there's that story about the Congo he could have made like $100,000 on, but let it slip through his fingers.
Oh, yeah, the $100,000 that got away.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about a learning experience. And it really drives home that point that opportunity can knock. But you got to be ready to answer, right?
Absolutely. And one of the first things that Keller tackles is like all the mental roadblocks, that keep people from investing. He calls it the devil's wedge, like this fear and doubt that wedges in there and stops people from reaching their financial goals.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
The devil's wedge. I mean, one of the big ones he busts is like, your job is enough to secure your financial future, right?
Right.
I think a lot of us get stuck in that, thinking that a steady paycheck equals financial freedom.
Right. But relying only on your job, I mean, you're basically trading time for money, right? And that's a finite resource.
That's true.
I mean, what happens if you want to retire early or you take some time off for family? Or even, what if your job disappears? I mean, that faucet gets turned off.
That's a good point. And that's where that idea of the big why comes in, right? Keller says you need a strong personal motivation for investing.
Right.
Something beyond just, making money.
Absolutely. And when he interviewed all these millionaire investors, they all had a big why, Financial freedom was part of it. But a lot of them, it was things like creating a legacy for their family, having more time to pursue their passions. Like they thought big, not just about money, but like the kind of life they wanted to build.
So how do you actually start like shifting your thinking away from just earning money to having your money work for you?
Yeah, well, that's where the whole money matrix idea comes in, right? So you've got your earned income, your paycheck, which is great, but it stops when you stop working, right? And then you've got unearned income, which is money generated by assets you own, even when you're not actively working.
I see.
And real estate is a fantastic example of that.
Okay, so why real estate in particular? I mean, there are tons of investment options out there. What makes property so special?
Well, I mean, for one thing, it's tangible, right? Like you can see it, you can touch it, you can improve it.
Right.
There's a sense of control that you don't get with, stocks, for example.
You're not glued to your phone watching the market.
Exactly.
Like up and down every second.
Real estate tends to be more stable, less susceptible to those, wild swings. And you've got the potential for appreciation. So like the property itself can increase in value over time.
And of course, there's cash flow from rental income if you decide to become a landlord.
Right.
And then, of course, tax advantages, right? There are those.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is always thing in handy.
Yeah, real estate comes with some unique tax benefits that can help you keep more of your profits. But even with all those benefits, Keller's very clear. You can't just, jump into real estate blindly. You got to find your niche.
He talks about 4 types of investors, right? The observers, the speculators, the collectors, and the investors.
Yeah, yeah. So you got your observers. Those are the folks who just kind of sit on the sidelines, watch the market, but never actually take action. And then you got your speculators. Those are the ones chasing quick profits, often without a solid plan.
Yeah, I think we've all met a few of those.
Yeah, and then you've got collectors who they buy based on emotions.
Oh, like they just love old houses or something?
Yeah, maybe they love, I don't know, a certain style of architecture or a particular neighborhood. But it's really the investors who really find success in real estate. They have a clear strategy, they do their research, and they're in it for the long haul.
So how do you figure out which one you are, and then how do you focus your energy?
Well, Keller really stresses the importance of specialization. Like find a niche within real estate and become an expert in that area.
I see.
It could be a specific type of property like single-family homes or a particular strategy like lease options.
I see.
But by focusing your efforts, You can really maximize your success.
And he even uses examples, right, from those millionaire investors, people who found incredible success by focusing on a specific niche.
Absolutely. I mean, some focused on foreclosures, others on multifamily properties, some even specialized in buying land and developing it.
Hmm.
The point is, find what works for you, what you're passionate about, and really, really dig in.
Okay, so you got your big why, you're starting to wrap your head around that money matrix, you're thinking about your niche. Now, how do you actually make this real estate investing thing happen? Like, where's the roadmap?
Well, that's where Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor's financial model comes in.
Okay.
This model's all about building wealth steadily through consistent investing over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about getting rich quick. It's about creating that solid foundation for long-term financial freedom.
And he even uses an example in the book, right? Like shows how someone can build, I think it's over 25 years
Yeah.
using this model. And,
Yeah. He actually lays it out. Like, here's how it works in the real world.
right?
He, visualizes how your net worth can grow, your annual cash flow. If you stick to the plan, I mean, it's pretty powerful to see it laid out like that.
It is. So how do you find those investment opportunities? Like where do you even start looking?
Well, that's where his lead generation model comes in. It helps you answer like 3 key questions.
Okay.
Like, what am I looking for? Who can help me find it? And how will I find the property?
Mm.
It's about being proactive and strategic, not just waiting for deals to fall into your lap.
And he gives a ton of practical tips, right?
Yeah.
Like building a network of real estate agents, other investors, who can kind of tip you off to good deals.
Yeah, and it's about having systems in place. Maybe it's setting up alerts for properties that meet your criteria,
Mm-hmm.
or attending auctions, foreclosure sales. You gotta actively hunt for those opportunities.
Okay, so you found a potential property. What's next? Like, how do you make sure that you're getting a good deal and not overpaying?
Well, that's where the acquisition model comes into play. This is all about the art of buying, right?
Okay.
Keller explains the 2 main acquisition strategies, like buying with cash and buying with financing.
Okay, wait, hold on. Explain that second one. What do you mean buying with financing?
So it means using a mortgage or another type of loan to purchase the property.
Okay.
A- And that allows you to leverage your investment and potentially acquire, more properties than you could with just cash alone.
I see. So is one better than the other, cash versus financing?
Well, it depends on your goals and your financial situation. If
Mm-hmm.
you're looking for, quick cash flow, buying with financing might be the way to go. But if you're more interested in building long-term wealth through appreciation, cash might be the better option.
Gotcha. And the book kind of dives deep into each approach, right?
Yeah.
Explains the pros and cons and even like gives you some pretty detailed financial calculations.
Right. It's not just theory. It's like practical guidance
Right.
on how to make these models work for you. But, even after you've acquired a property, the work's not over, right?
Oh no.
You got to manage it effectively.
I bet that's where a lot of people get tripped up.
Yeah.
Owning real estate's one thing, managing it successfully is a whole other ballgame. What kind of practical advice does Keller offer on that front?
Well, he really emphasizes the importance of specialization, even when it comes to managing your properties.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
he says you don't have to be a jack of all trades.
So it's okay to admit that you're not a plumber, electrician, and roofer all in one.
Exactly. You can leverage the talents of others by building a team, of reliable contractors, property managers.
I see.
He also stresses the importance of, controlling expenses, protecting your assets. And this is huge. Always learning and growing.
He's big on continuing education for investors.
Absolutely. He says the real estate market is constantly evolving, so you got to stay ahead of the curve.
Mm.
Reading books, attending seminars, networking with other investors.
So it's not just about buying the right properties, it's about sharpening your skills and your knowledge as an investor.
Exactly.
Makes sense. All right, so let's talk about, something that really gets people excited, like making serious money with real estate. Keller even dedicates a whole section to achieving $1 million in annual pre-tax income.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
It is a big number.
But he breaks it down into 3 achievable models, right?
He does, yeah.
The all-cash model, the standard model, and the acquisition model.
Right.
Each one has its own requirements, timelines, but they all lead to that same goal of substantial passive income from your real estate investments. And he even gives examples, right? Like how many properties you'd need to acquire, at what value
Yeah.
to hit that $1 million mark.
It's like a financial roadmap to millionaire status.
It is.
And he even gives specific examples for each model.
Mm-hmm.
That, for instance, if you're going with the all-cash model, you might need to acquire a certain number of higher-priced properties.
Right.
But with the acquisition model, you might be able to achieve that same income with a larger number of more, moderately priced properties.
It's fascinating to see how he breaks down the math and shows there are multiple paths
Right.
to achieving that level of financial freedom.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, most people don't start out buying dozens of properties.
Right.
How do you scale up from managing a few rentals to building a full-fledged real estate investment business?
That's a great question, and Keller addresses it head on.
Okay.
He talks about the importance of building a team and transitioning from being a hands-on investor to more of a CEO role.
Okay, so less fixer-upper and
Yeah.
more big-picture strategist.
Exactly. He outlines 3 key areas of focus. So you got acquisition and disposition. That's, finding and acquiring properties.
Right.
Administration, like managing finances, paperwork, all that fun stuff.
I see.
And then operations, the day-to-day running of your properties.
That sounds like a lot to juggle.
It is. But Keller emphasizes that you don't have to do it all yourself.
Right.
The key is, building a strong team and leveraging the expertise of others. Think property managers, contractors, accountants, attorneys, people who can handle the day-to-day tasks while you focus on the big picture.
So it's almost like building any other successful business, right? You need the right people in the right roles.
Precisely. And, the investor profiles really highlight this. Like, we see people who started small, but were able to scale their businesses significantly by building those strong teams and systems.
There was that one investor who started with just a couple of rental properties and ended up with a massive portfolio
Yeah.
and multiple businesses, right?
Yeah, I mean, he realized that to grow, he needed to move beyond being just a landlord. He had to become, a leader, a strategist, a CEO, right?
It's a great example of how that more systematic, business-minded approach can really pay off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of mindsets, Teller talks a lot about the importance of having a big why.
Right. Yeah, he says it's essential for staying motivated and overcoming challenges. And when you look at those investor profiles, it's clear that their big why, it went beyond just financial gain. Right? Some were driven by, desire to create a legacy for their children. Others wanted to use their wealth to make a difference in their communities.
Right. So it's not just about the money. It's about aligning your financial goals with your personal values and aspirations.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes real estate investing so compelling. It's a path to financial freedom. That can also be a vehicle for positive change in the world.
It can be. Now, you've mentioned mentorship a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Why is finding a mentor so important in real estate investing?
Because having someone who's been there, done that, can be invaluable, especially when you're just starting out. A mentor can provide guidance, support, and even, help you avoid costly mistakes.
It's like having a shortcut to success, almost.
In a way, yeah. But it's not just about getting the inside scoop on deals or anything like that.
Right.
A good mentor can, help you develop your skills, refine your strategy, build confidence in your abilities.
So where do you find these mentors?
Well, there are a few different avenues. You can join real estate investment clubs or associations, attend industry events.
Right.
And you can even reach out to successful investors directly.
Oh, okay.
So don't be afraid to network and build relationships with people who are, further along in their real estate journey.
So, I mean, what's one key takeaway you want listeners to really internalize from this part of our deep dive?
I think it's, real estate investing, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time, effort, a willingness to learn, to grow. But the rewards can be incredible.
They can be.
If you're willing to put in the work.
So don't get discouraged by setbacks, celebrate your victories, and never give up on those dreams of building wealth through real estate.
And remember, the most important investment you can make is in your own knowledge and development. So keep reading, keep learning, and keep pushing yourself to grow as an investor.
Couldn't have said it better myself. One thing that really struck me about those millionaire investor profiles was how creative they got with financing. Like, it wasn't always about going to a bank for a traditional mortgage.
Yeah, it's true. They really pushed the boundaries when it came to finding ways to make deals happen. One investor used something called a wrap loan.
A wrap loan. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. Break that down for me. How does a wrap loan work?
So imagine a seller has a mortgage with a low interest rate, but they need to sell quickly. So instead of getting a new mortgage, the investor takes over that existing one.
Oh, okay.
They pay the seller the difference in price and also cover the mortgage payments. So it can be a win-win for both parties.
Interesting. So it shows that there's more than one way to skin a cat, right, when it comes to financing, and it highlights the importance of being resourceful, especially when, traditional financing might not be an option.
Right, exactly. These investors weren't afraid to think outside the box and explore those alternative financing strategies.
Mm-hmm.
They used lease options, seller financing, even private loans to acquire properties.
Speaking of challenges, owning and managing real estate, it isn't always smooth sailing, is it? The book doesn't shy away from those potential headaches, does it?
Not at all. Keller gets into the nitty-gritty of dealing with everything from tenant issues to property maintenance. He emphasizes the importance of having systems in place
Right.
to streamline operation.
He talks about creating a personal balance sheet, right?
Yeah.
To track your net worth. That always seemed like a really powerful tool for staying on top of your finances.
Yeah, it's basically like a snapshot of your assets and liabilities at a specific point in time.
Okay.
Helps you track your overall financial health. Make sure you're on track to reach your goals. Keller recommends updating it regularly to stay informed about your financial progress.
So it's not just about buying properties, it's about actively managing your finances and making, informed decisions to build long-term wealth.
Exactly. And that includes protecting your assets. Keller talks about strategies for minimizing risk, like having proper insurance coverage, setting up legal entities to shield your personal assets from liability.
Okay, I have to admit, this concept of achieving $1 million in annual pre-tax income from real estate, it sounds amazing, but also a little daunting.
It's a big goal, for sure.
Yes.
But remember those three models we talked about?
Right.
The all-cash model, the standard model, and the acquisition model. They each offer a different path to reaching that financial milestone.
Right, and it's not about picking the best model. It's about understanding which one aligns with your risk tolerance, your financial resources, your timeline.
Exactly. So, the all-cash model, that's for folks who want to build wealth quickly. But it requires a substantial upfront investment.
Right.
The standard model is more gradual, rely on steady investing and the power of compounding returns over time.
And the acquisition model is all about leveraging financing
Right.
to accelerate growth.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if I'm more risk averse and don't have a ton of cash on hand right now, the standard model might be a better fit for me.
Exactly. It's about finding the model that matches your individual circumstances and goals.
Right.
But no matter which model you choose, Keller really stresses the importance of having a clear financial plan.
He's big on taking control of your financial future, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He says, don't just leave it to chance or hope that things will work out. Take control by educating yourself, developing a plan, and consistently taking action.
I like that. Okay, so let's say I've got my financial plan in place. I'm starting to build my portfolio. What's that next step in scaling up to, like a full-fledged real estate investment business?
Keller talks about transitioning from being a hands-on investor to more of a CEO role.
Okay.
Right? It's about building a system that can operate effectively even when you're not directly involved in every detail.
So less do it yourself and more delegate and oversee.
Right, exactly. He outlines a framework for scaling your operations. And it starts with focusing on acquisition and disposition. Essentially, finding and acquiring properties that meet your criteria.
Right.
And then selling or holding them for profit.
You can't be out there scouting properties and managing contractors if you're trying to run a multi-million-dollar business.
Exactly. And then as your business grows, you need systems for administration, managing finances, legal paperwork, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's operations, the day-to-day tasks of managing properties like maintenance, repairs, tenant communication.
Sounds like a lot to handle.
It is. But Keller emphasizes, again, you don't have to do it all yourself. The key is building a strong team, leveraging the expertise of others.
Right.
Think property managers, contractors, accountants, attorneys,
It's almost like building any other successful business.
hmm
You need the right people in the right roles.
Precisely. And the investor profiles really highlight this. We see people who started small,
Mm-hmm.
but were able to scale their businesses significantly by building those strong teams and systems.
I mean, there was that one investor who started with a couple rental properties and ended up with a massive portfolio and multiple businesses.
Yeah, and he realized that to grow, he needed to move beyond being just a landlord. He had to become, a leader, a strategist, a CEO.
It's a great example of how taking that more systematic, business-minded approach
hmm
can really pay off in the long run.
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of mindsets, Keller talks a lot about the importance of having a big why.
Right, he says it's essential for staying motivated and overcoming challenges. And when you look at those investor profiles, it's clear that their big why, it went beyond just financial gain. You know,
Yeah.
some were driven by, a desire to create a legacy for their children. Others
hmm
wanted to use their wealth to make a difference in their communities.
So it's not just about the money, it's about aligning your financial goals
Mhm.
with your values and aspirations.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes real estate investing so compelling. It's a path to financial freedom that can also be a vehicle for positive change.
Right, right. Now, you've mentioned mentorship a few times now.
Mhm.
Why is finding a mentor so important in real estate investing?
Well, because having someone who's been there, done that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
can be invaluable, especially when you're just starting out.
Sure.
A mentor can provide guidance, support, and even help you avoid those costly mistakes.
It's almost like having a shortcut to success, right?
In a way, yeah. But it's not just about, getting the inside scoop on deals or anything like that.
Right.
What good mentor can, help you develop your skills, refine your strategy, build confidence in your abilities?
So where do you find these mentors?
Well, there are a few different avenues. You can join, real estate investment clubs or associations,
Mm-hmm.
attend industry events,
Okay.
and you can even reach out to successful investors directly.
Oh, okay.
So don't be afraid to network and build relationships with people who are, further along in their real estate journey.
So what's one key takeaway you want listeners to really internalize from this part of our deep dive?
I think it's, real estate investing, it's a marathon, not a sprint,
Mm.
It takes time, effort, a willingness to learn, to grow,
For sure.
but the rewards can be incredible if you're willing to put in the work.
So don't get discouraged by setbacks. Celebrate your victories.
hmm
And never give up on your dreams of building wealth through real estate.
And remember, the most important investment you can make is in your own knowledge and development.
Mm-hmm.
So, keep reading, keep learning, and keep pushing yourself to grow as an investor.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's funny, when you think of like millionaires, you picture, I don't know, lavish lifestyles and extravagant spending.
Yeah.
But a lot of these millionaire real estate investors, they don't fit that stereotype at all.
No, not at all. A lot of them live surprisingly modest lives.
Yeah.
They're not flashy. They're focused on financial security
Right.
and building long-term wealth.
Keller even kind of challenges that whole spend up you earn mentality, right?
Oh, absolutely. He talks about the importance of paying yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Setting aside a portion of your income for investments before you even think about spending on other things.
It's like flipping the script on how we usually approach money.
Yeah. Instead of spending and then saving whatever's left over, you're prioritizing your future self.
Right from the start.
Exactly. And it ties into that concept of understanding the difference between consumption and capital,
Mm-hmm.
right? Consumption is spending money on things that, decrease in value over time.
Right.
Clothes, gadgets, whatever.
Yeah.
Capital is using your money to buy assets that generate more money, like real estate.
So you're not just buying a fancy car to impress your neighbors.
Right.
You're investing in a rental property
Exactly.
that generates income and appreciates in value.
It's about making your money work for you.
I like that. So that leads to another important point that Keller makes, the need for a solid financial plan.
Yes.
He's not a fan of just winging it, is he?
Not at all. Not at all. He says, hope is not a strategy. You need a clear roadmap, outlining your financial goals, your investment strategies, a realistic timeline
Right.
for achieving those goals.
And it's not just about creating that plan. It's about actively tracking your progress and making adjustments along the way,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely
Life
true.
throws curveballs.
Yeah.
The market fluctuates, things change.
Yeah. Flexibility is key.
Right.
And that's where that personal balance sheet we talked about earlier comes in handy.
Yeah.
You know, helps you stay on top of your financial health, make sure you're on track.
What do you think is like the biggest myth people have about becoming a millionaire real estate investor?
Um, I think a lot of people believe that it requires, a huge chunk of money to get started.
Yeah, yeah.
But Keller shows that's not true at all.
Right.
You can start small, even with a few $1,000s, and gradually build your portfolio over time.
He really emphasizes that it's not about like being a real estate genius
Right.
or having some secret insider information.
Yeah.
It's about following, proven models, being disciplined, making smart decisions.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's about understanding that real estate investing, it's a long game. It's
Yeah.
not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No.
It takes time, it takes patience, and takes a willingness to weather the ups and downs of the market.
There will be challenges, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Unexpected expenses, market shifts, maybe even, a difficult tenant or two.
Absolutely.
It's not always going to be easy.
It's not always going to be a walk in the park.
No.
But the investors profiled in the book, they demonstrate that resilience and a willingness to learn from mistakes
Right.
are essential for long-term success.
Yeah, they didn't let setbacks derail them. They
Sure.
used them as opportunities to grow,
Yeah,
improve
sure.
their strategies.
Yeah, they all seem to share that growth mindset.
Yeah.
Always learning, always adapting, always striving to become better investors.
It's inspiring to see that level of dedication and commitment.
It is.
They truly believe in the power of real estate
Mm.
to create wealth and achieve financial freedom.
And their success stories prove that, it's possible
Right.
for anyone with the right mindset, the right strategies, and the willingness to put in the work.
So for our listeners who are feeling inspired and ready to take action, what's that first step on their real estate investing journey? What advice would you give them?
I would say start by defining your big why.
Yeah.
What's your driving force? What are you hoping to achieve through real estate investing?
Mm-hmm.
Having a clear and compelling purpose, I think, will fuel your motivation
Mm-hmm.
and help you stay focused, when challenges inevitably arrive.
It's not just about the money. It's about aligning your financial goals with your values and aspirations.
Exactly, exactly. And once you have that big why, start educating yourself.
Yeah.
Read books like A Millionaire Real Estate Investor, attend seminars, network with other investors. Knowledge is power, especially in the world of real estate.
And remember, you don't have to have all the answers right away.
No.
Take it one step at a time, build your knowledge, build your network, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely, absolutely. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step,
That's true.
right? And in this case, that step could be picking up a copy of The Millionaire Real Estate Investor and diving into the world of real estate investing.
Couldn't agree more. And hey, who knows, maybe one day we'll be featuring your success story
There you go.
on a future episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. We hope you found it valuable. And remember, the path to financial freedom is out there. It starts with taking that first step.